What's good with y'all, man? It's your boy GLX back with another video, man. In this video, y'all, it's gonna be just a straightforward video. I'm gonna be explaining to y'all a bunch of financial terms, basically every financial term that you need to know in order to be successful. And this is because a lot of people, especially in our community, we're very financially illiterate. Not by our fault. It's because people don't teach us these things. You feel me? People don't teach us the terms, what these words mean. People use a bunch of words and we don't know what they mean, right? So basically, I'm gonna be your dictionary for like a bunch of these financial terms. This is part one to a series. I don't know how long I'm finna make this series is. I guess whatever y'all want me to do, however long y'all want me to make this series, you feel me? Let me know down in the comments below. Real quick before we get into this video, y'all, I want to thank y'all so much for 9 subscribers. We're on the 1 to 10 subscribers. Like, y'all might think like, first of all, y'all might think I'm just being sarcastic about 9 subscribers, or y'all might think that like 9 subscribers is not a lot of subscribers. And you know, relatively, it might not be a lot of subscribers, but like, y'all think about it, like that's 9 people who saw my channel and thought this guy is interesting. I want to see more. You feel what I'm saying? That shit means something to me, bro. It's just like, that shit just means like, y'all actually fuck with me for real and want to see my content. And I really fuck with that for real. Like, I really appreciate y'all for real. You feel me? Because I never thought people actually would want to hear me talk. You feel me? But evidently people do want to actually hear me talk. You feel me? But without further ado, let's get straight into the video. Y'all be sure to like, comment, subscribe, smash that like button, all that stuff, man. And let's get straight into it, man. So the first financial term we got is an asset. Now, what is an asset? Now, a lot of people are actually misinformed about what an asset is, because I said this in a previous video before, right? And there's a lot of misinformation about an asset, a real asset, right? Excuse me. A real asset is an asset is something that you own that has value. That is the textbook like definition, but that's not like what a real asset is. A real asset is something that you own that puts money into your pocket. Some people could say like, oh, a house is an asset, because a textbook definition would be a house or a car, and you own it, and it has value in the market. Because people will say like an asset has value in the market, but an asset is something that puts money into your pocket. So, for example, a house. If you buy a house using a loan and you're paying off that loan each month, that's not an asset, because you're not actually renting out that house or making any money with that house. You feel me? It would be an asset if you decided you're going to go rent out that house and put it up for rent, and then you're making money off of it. Let me give you an example, right? Say I go buy a house for $200K, and the mortgage every month is about $2,000, right? So now I'm going to go and rent out that house, and I'm going to go say, look, this house is for rent for about $6,000, right? Somebody comes in and lives in that house for $6,000 per month. So now that mortgage is being paid off 3 times. You feel what I'm saying? I can pay that mortgage off 3 times with the money I'm getting from the rent. I'm making $4,000 extra per month from that house. Now that house is an asset, because I'm generating passive income. And then once I pay off that mortgage, that I still own that house. You feel what I'm saying? That's what you call an asset. Something that puts money into your pocket. Now, a liability, that's the opposite of an asset. The exact opposite of an asset is a liability. Now, a liability is more straightforward than an asset, because like the real definition is kind of accurate. You feel me? An asset is something that takes money out of your pocket. For example, that house again. I bought the same thing. I bought it for $20,000. The mortgage is $2,000, right? But now I'm not renting in that house and I'm living in that house. Now that's a liability technically, bro. It's legally an asset, but technically it is a liability, because I'm not making no money from it and I'm losing money on it every month. That's a liability. something that takes money out of your pocket. When you want to get rich, you need to basically know the difference between an asset and a liability, and know how to balance and actually like make an asset go up and a liability go down. I actually have a whole video about that coming out soon. It's a whole flow. It's a whole circle. Life and finances is a circle, but we're gonna get into it in the next video. Let's move on, right? Equity. What is equity? Equity is the value that is left over after you subtract your liabilities from your assets. It's the portion of something that you actually truly own, right? So you subtract your debts from how much money you actually paid off, and that's your equity. For example, the house situation, right? The house situation. You buy a house this time for $500,000, and that house is an asset. However, you took out a loan and you've paid off $100,000, right? So now you still owe, because that house you took out a loan for $500,000, right? And you've given the bank $100,000. So that's that much money. Now your equity is $100,000 because you've given the bank $100,000 to pay off that loan. So now $500,000 minus $400,000 is $100,000. Your equity is $100,000, right? Another example would be if you have a house and a car. Let's say you have a house worth $200,000 and a car worth $50K, right? So altogether, your assets is $250,000. So now let's say you've paid off the loan completely for the car, and now you're still paying off the loan for the house, but you're like about halfway for the house. So that's $100,000 for the house that you paid off already. Now your equity is $150,000 because you've paid off $50K for the car and $100,000 for the house. That adds up to be your equity in total, which is $150,000. Let's keep going, man. Revenue. Revenue is basically your top line number. That's the amount of money that you're getting in from a business, side hustle, anything that you're doing that is not a job or whatever. That's how much money. That's the amount of money you're bringing in, right? And that's before costs. So revenue does not include costs of labor, cost of like time, any of that. That's just purely how much money you're bringing in. For example, if you own a restaurant and you're bringing in $200,000 per month every year, that's about like 24 million, I guess. That's about 24 million. No, like 2.4 million. I'm tweaking. But yeah, $2.4 million per year. That's your yearly revenue. And that's before all the expenses to maintain the restaurant and all that stuff. That's what revenue is, right? Profit. Profit is the money that you actually keep. Now, profit is the amount of money that you take after you subtract all your expenses to maintain the restaurant. So now let's say every month you make $200,000, but to maintain the restaurant, it would cost you about $180,000. So now you do 200K minus 180K, and you're left with $20,000 per month. That's your profit. That's how much money you actually keep and take in every month. It's not the amount of money you make, it's the amount of money that you actually see. You actually keep that money. And yearly, it would be about like, I think, $2,400,000. Yeah, something like that. And expenses. Expenses that's really goes hand in hand with profit and revenue, right? Expenses, that's just how much money you spend to keep up with whatever you got going on. A restaurant owner, their expenses are payrolls, paying like for the chairs, buying people to clean the place. That's their stuff. That's a business owner's expense. But your expenses are just like regular people stuff. Bills, car notes, probably a house, all that stuff. Those are expenses. And those take out from your revenue, or in this case, your income, right? Keep going, man. A budget. A budget is a future-looking plan towards your money. Basically, it's a document to show what your plan is for the future and what you're going to do with your money. I know probably a lot of y'all who are watching this probably know what a budget is. You feel me? But this is just like the basic beginner's guide to financial terms. We're going to get into the higher stuff later on. You feel me? Especially in part 2, possibly part 3. If y'all want a part 3, just let me know in the comments again. But yes, a budget. Let's say you want to spend only $1,000 for this month. That's a budget. You got a budget of $1,000. Feel me? Let's keep going. Cash flow. This is one of my favorite terms, right? Cash flow is the timing and movement of money in and out of your accounts. It is possible for y'all to be rich on paper, but have poor cash flow. What that means is you have a lot of assets that generate money, but you don't have any liquid cash available to pay a bill. For example, imagine you own a business that sends invoices to clients, right? You did $10,000 worth of work in January, so you are profitable. However, the client isn't going to pay you until March. Meanwhile, your rent is due in February, so now you have a cash flow problem. The money is coming eventually, but it's not flowing to your account fast enough to cover what's flowing out of your bank account, right? That's a little complicated, so let's simplify it a little bit, right? Basically, cash flow is how fast, how immediate you have access to your money. You feel what I'm saying? If you like, let's say for example, if you had a business selling snacks in school, right? And people kept asking you like, yo, can I pay you on Tuesday? Can I pay you on this and that, right? So you say, okay, cool. So now you got like 100 people paying you next week. So now you ran out of snacks. You bought snacks this week and you ran out of snacks. So now you need more snacks to buy these more snacks next week, right? But you can't because nobody paid you. Everyone's paying you next week, not today. So you have no money to actually get the snacks now. You're still gonna get the money next week, but you don't have any money to buy real like snacks right now. So you got to use either your own money, or you just got to come to school with no snacks next week. You feel what I'm saying? That's an example of poor cash flow, y'all. Let's keep it pushing, y'all. Net worth. Net worth is let's say like that's the ultimate scoreboard of personal finance, right? It's a single number calculated by taking your total assets, which is everything that you own, and subtracting it by your liabilities, which is everything that you owe. A positive net worth means that you own way more than you owe, which means you're making more money than you're getting out, which is what I've been talking about. Feel me? Having more assets than liabilities, y'all. Come on now, man. But a negative net worth means that you are in debt, which means that you owe way more money than you're even like making. You feel what I'm saying? Everybody knows about debt. Come on now. Let's keep it pushing, y'all. For example, you have $5,000 in the bank and a car worth $10,000, right? Your total assets are $1,500. However, you have a student loans for $20,000. To find your net worth, you would need to take $15,000 and subtract it by $20,000. Your net worth is negative $5,000. So to increase this number, that's how you build wealth. It's increasing this number. Getting your assets above your expenses, that's how you increase your wealth. Let's keep it pushing. Return on investment. This is the big one, man. This is one of my favorite ones besides cash flow. This is probably like possibly actually number one. It might be tied with cash flow, I'm not gonna lie. Return on investment. Return on investment, or ROI, right? That's a percentage that tells you how efficient an investment is. It measures how much profit you made relative to how much money you had to spend to earn it, right? Now, I need y'all to pay attention for this one because this is a really good example. This is what I'm talking about my whole channel, right? Because we love spending money to make money. That's our whole channel. We love spending money to make money, y'all. So, for example, you spend $100 to buy a specialized lawnmower. It can blow leaves like way faster than any other lawnmower on the market. Feel me? So you use that lawnmower to earn $150 mowing lawns. Now you made a $50 profit because you spent $100 to get it, and it made you $150, right? So to calculate your return on investment, you divide your profit by your cost, which gives you 0.5 or 50%. So you earned a 50% return on your money. That's a 50% return on investment, yo. Let's keep it pushing. Now we get into the really good stuff. You feel me? A stock. What is a stock? A stock is either a piece of paper or a digital record. Nowadays, it's digital. You feel me? But it used to be like pieces of paper, like real pieces of paper, right? It's a digital record that signifies that you own a piece of a real company, right? When a company or corporation is public, they divide their ownership into millions of pieces. So when you buy a share of stock, you become a partial owner of that business. Imagine a pizza restaurant is divided into 100 pieces, right? If you buy one stock of the restaurant, you literally own 1% of that company. If the restaurant becomes really popular and it makes a lot of money, the value of your 1% goes up. Let's say you bought the 1% for like $100, right? If the pizza place becomes really popular, people start buying more pizza, prices of pizza go up, your stock will go up. Now the price is like $1,000, right? But if the restaurant goes out of business or if nobody wants it, if they make crappy pizza, then nobody wants to eat the pizza or buy the pizza, then your price goes down to like $1. And now you lost money on that stock. That's the stock market, and that's what stocks is. A bond. A bond is basically a loan, but it's in reverse, right? So what a bond is, you know how normally you go to the bank to buy it, to get a loan to buy a house. But in this case, you are the bank. You are the bank for either a small business or the government. Basically, you lend money to the government or a corporation saying, I'll give you this money, but in exchange, you pay me this amount of money later. That's interest. And they promise to pay you back in full later, plus interest payments along the way. For example, the city you live in wants to build a new park, but they don't have the cash. They issue a bond. You buy the bond for $1,000. Effectively, you've lent the city $1,000, and in return, they agree to pay you $50 a year in interest for 10 years. And then they give you your original $1,000 back at the end. You didn't buy a piece of the city, but you gave them a loan. You feel what I'm saying? Okay. A mutual fund. A mutual fund is a pool of money collected by many investors to buy a massive collection of stocks or bonds, right? Let me say that again. A mutual fund is a pool of money collected from multiple investors to purchase bonds or stocks. So instead of you trying to pick which stock is the single best one, right? You give your money to a professional manager who uses it to buy hundreds of different stocks at once. For example, you got $100 to invest. You can't buy much with that, right? But if you and 1,000 other people invest $100 into a bucket, now y'all together have $100,000, right? So a manager takes that bucket and buys shares in Apple, Amazon, Tesla, and 50 other companies, right? So now you own a tiny slice of that entire bucket, giving you safety through variety, right? Now you own a little bit of all those companies that you bought, and you only put in $1,000. You know what I'm saying? an exchange traded fund, or an ETF. This one is also one of my favorite ones, top 3 for sure. An ETF. What an ETF is very similar to a mutual fund, right? It's a basket of many different investments, but it trades on the stock market just like a regular stock. Mutual funds are normally bought throughout the day and only sold at the end of the day, right? But an ETF can be sold instantly and bought within like 5 seconds, right? An ETF is basically just like you have multiple different businesses and they're coming together to create one stock. So now you own a tiny slice of a bunch of different businesses. You feel what I'm saying? Basically, imagine if you had a pie and that pie had a bunch of different flavors. So now instead of picking one flavor you want specifically for that pie, you get a piece of that pie that has all the flavors, but it has a little bit of every single flavor in that pie. You feel what I'm saying? That's what an ETF is. You get a little bit of every company. For example, if you go into a tech ETF, it's going to be companies like Google, Apple, Amazon, all those major tech companies, all into one stock that you can invest in. So now you have a little bit of each of Apple, of Google, of Amazon, all that stuff. You feel what I'm saying? That's why I love it so much. Let's keep going. A dividend. A dividend payment is a cash bonus paid to shareholders out of a company's profits. Now, not all companies pay dividends, right? But profitable ones, most profitable ones pay dividends to people who own their stock. Basically, what it is, it's basically a reward and a thank you for saying, "Oh, you bought our stock, cool. So now you hold our stock, let's reward you." You feel what I'm saying? For example, you own 10 shares of Coca-Cola stock, right? You own 10 shares of Coke, right? Coke is very profitable, so they declare a dividend of 50 cents per share. So now you wake up the next morning and your account has $5 that has been deposited in your cash balance. You didn't do anything. The company just paid you some of their profits because they've said they appreciate you for owning their stock. You feel what I'm saying? Capital gain. A capital gain is the profit you make when you sell an asset for a higher price than you paid for it. It is the growth part of actually investing. Let's say, for example, you bought a stock for $100. 2 weeks later, it skyrockets to like $200, right? You sell that stock right then and there, and you made $100 in profit. That is your capital gain. That $100 is your capital gain, right? Now, capital gains is actually taxed. So whenever you sell something, you get taxed on the profit that you make. So you don't keep all that profit, right? That's why the rich people, when they want to buy something using their stocks, they don't sell their stocks. They do something else, which is called buy, borrow, die, which I'll explain in another video because it's a really good tactic that I'm going to use for my son, right? But essentially, capital gain is the profit you make from selling a stock that gets higher over time. You feel what I'm saying? Last one is portfolio. Portfolio is simply the collection of all your financial investments, like all of them conveniently put into one. It's basically your history of investments, real estate, stocks, crypto, everything. It's put into one. If you ask a wealthy person, what's in your portfolio? They say they got like 50% in stocks, 20% in bonds, 20% in real estate, and 10% in crypto. You feel me? Because that's what's in their portfolio, because that's what they want to do. It's basically just all your investments but into one. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, y'all, that's all the terms I got for y'all today. I'm making a part 2 later on about more terms that y'all need to know for finance. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe to the video, y'all. Appreciate y'all watching all the way through. Peace, y'all.